For several weeks, the suspect had been closely observing his target, a man who followed the same routine every morning. He knew exactly when the victim would step outside to smoke, and precisely where he would throw his cigarette butt. What the victim didn't know was that the trash bin beside him had been deliberately doused with gasoline. At around AM in the morning of September 29, 2025, the suspect's plan was set into motion. As the victim flicked his cigarette into the bin, a sudden burst of fire erupted. In a matter of seconds, the flame spread, trapping the victim. The suspect watched from a distance, silent, expressionless, as the victim struggled, the fire consuming him alive. Moments later, the victim's co-workers rushed outside after hearing his cries for help. Panic and chaos filled the area as they desperately tried to extinguish the flames, but it was too late. The incident was immediately reported to authorities at 8:15 a.m.
911, what's your emergency?
Upon receipt of the report, the first responders, led by Police Master Sergeant Jarvis Lewis, immediately proceeded to the scene of the incident. The team arrived at approximately 8:20 am and conducted an initial assessment to verify the situation. Upon confirming the presence of a possible crime, the team established a security cordon at around 8:22 am to preserve the integrity of the scene. The area was cleared of unauthorized persons, and entry was restricted only to authorized investigative personnel. Photographs and initial notes were taken to document the condition of the scene upon arrival. Coordination with Barangay officials and nearby witnesses was also initiated to gather preliminary information relevant to the case. After securing the area, the first responders ensured that all procedures were followed in accordance with standard police protocols. They reported the situation to their higher office and awaited the arrival of the investigator on case for further processing. The team assisted in maintaining perimeter security and controlling the flow of onlookers while ensuring that evidence remained undisturbed. Upon arrival at the scene, the investigator on case IOC immediately assumed control of the investigation from the first responders. The IOC began by conducting a thorough walkthrough of the area to obtain an overall view of the scene's layout and the position of key evidence. The IOC then carefully looked for possible pieces of evidence that were easily degradable, such as biological traces, footprints, or transient materials that might require immediate collection prior to the arrival of the SOCO team. However, after a meticulous search, no such perishable evidence was found. After the initial assessment, on or about 8:45 am of the same day, the IOC requested the scene of the crime operative SOCO to conduct a detailed forensic examination. This includes photographing, sketching, and collecting physical evidence, biological materials, and trace evidence found at the scene. Upon the arrival of the SOCO team, the IOC formally turned over the scene for detailed forensic processing and continued to assist in the documentation and coordination of investigative tasks. The investigator on case also conducted on-the-spot interviews with available witnesses and barangay officials to gather first-hand accounts of the incident and establish a timeline of events. Upon the SOCO team's arrival, the investigator on case immediately provided the initial observation of the incident. Before entering the scene, a note-taker was designated to record all individuals entering and exiting the area. The team leader, accompanied by the note-taker, then proceeded inside to assess the situation and identify all important details, while the note-taker carefully documented every necessary observation. This step is necessary in the investigation, as it allows the team leader to gain a clear understanding of the scene and determine the appropriate actions to take. This record prepared by PM Sabrina Ike.
Sarita,
is certified by the SOCO team leader and noted by the Chief of Office, ensuring the credibility and integrity of the crime scene documentation. After the initial assessment, they exited the crime scene to brief the rest of the team regarding the situation and to assign each member their respective tasks. The photographer begins by taking several shots showing the general view of the entire scene, including the yellow police tape and nearby surroundings. He then captures medium shots that highlight the main area where the incident occurred, ensuring that key details are visible. After documenting the outer view, he carefully steps inside the cordoned area to take the four-corner shots, showing the scene from all directions to provide a complete and accurate record for the investigation. Once completed, he takes another medium shot that clearly includes the case identifier, ensuring proper documentation of the evidence within the photographed area. PM's Castro arrived at the crime scene ready to begin her work as the forensic sketcher, together with the evidence searcher PM's Joshua Manabat. Her first task was to outline the cordoned alleyway from a bird's eye view, carefully sketching the entire secured area and marking its boundaries. The evidence searcher, BM's Joshua Manabat, conducted a careful spiral search, starting from the outer perimeter and moving systematically toward the center of the crime scene. After completing the initial draft, PM's Gianna Castro, with the help of evidence searchers, she numbered the evidence and the body on the sketch to ensure everything was clearly identified. After that, PM's Gianna Castro joined the measurers to apply the triangular method, carefully measuring the distances between key pieces of evidence and landmarks. This step ensured the accuracy and reliability of the sketch. The evidence searcher, BM's Joshua Manabat, together with the crime scene photographer, carefully measured each tagged evidence for proper documentation. The first evidence found was a glass shard with blood, which was marked as number 1. As he moved inward, he located a cigarette butt, marked as number 2, positioned near the trash bin where the fire originated. Close to this, he observed a gasoline receipt lying on the ground, marked as number 3. A box of cigarettes was found nearby and marked as number 4. Upon reaching the victim, he noted a second glass shard that was visibly punctured in the victim's body, marked as number 5, which was also photographed like all the other pieces of evidence. Near the trash bin, suspected gasoline containers were discovered and marked as number 6. After the thorough search of PM's Joshua Manabat, he left the crime scene, which was noted by the note-taker PM Sabrina Sarita. The measurers, PM's Erica Alia Abales and PM's Kathleen Garcia, systematically performed the measurement of the entire crime scene to ensure the accuracy and reliability of all spatial data recorded. They began by measuring the cordoned area, determining its total length and width to define the exact perimeter of the scene. After establishing the boundary, they identified several fixed reference points, specifically the pillars and poles located around the area, which served as stable anchors for the measurement process. These reference points were first measured from one another to verify their relative distances, ensuring the consistency of the reference framework that would later be used for triangulation. Once all reference points were established, PEMs Ballas and PEMs Garcia proceeded to apply the triangulation method in measuring the precise locations of each evidence item found at the scene. This method involved taking two independent distance measurements from two different reference points to each piece of evidence, allowing its position to be accurately plotted on the crime scene sketch without altering or disturbing the evidence. For evidence number 1, the glass shard with blood, measurements were taken from two fixed pillars, ensuring accurate documentation of its exact position on the ground. Evidence number 2, the cigarette butt near the trash bin, was then measured using two poles as reference points to determine its proximity to other nearby evidence. Evidence number 3, the gasoline receipt found close to the trash bin, was measured in relation to both a pillar and a pole, with its orientation to the baseline also recorded. Evidence number 4, the box of cigarettes found near the cigarette butt, was measured using distances from two fixed reference points as well as the spacing between the cigarette butt and the box itself. Upon reaching evidence number 5, the second glass shard punctured in the victim's body. Both measurers took precise measurements from two pillars and one baseline point to ensure the accuracy of the shard's position relative to the victim's body. They also documented the angle and orientation of the shard for later reconstruction. Evidence number 6, the suspected gasoline containers near the trash bin, was measured by determining the distances from two nearby reference points and recording the space between both containers to understand their placement. Finally, evidence number 7, which consisted of multiple blood spots on the ground, was measured individually. Each spot was triangulated from two different reference points, and the spacing between the stains was documented to establish the possible direction and movement of the victim before collapse. These measurements are all noted by the sketcher, which will be added to the final sketch of the scene. Measures together with the sketcher leaving the crime scene, which was noted by PM Sabrina Sarita. And then, the evidence collector, PM's Cole Reyes, carefully collects the evidence marked by the searcher at the crime scene. The first piece of evidence is a glass shard that contains blood. The collector wraps the glass shard with paper. Before wrapping, the blood stain found on the glass shard must first be swabbed, then air-dried. After air-drying, it must be placed in a paper envelope. Wrapping the glass shard with paper is important because it allows the remaining blood stain to dry naturally, preventing moisture buildup, bacterial growth, and degradation of DNA. Additionally, using paper helps prevent the sharp glass from cutting through the packaging, ensuring safer handling and preservation of the evidence. When placing the evidence on an evidence collection bag, it is one of the protocols that the hands of the collector must not go through inside the bag, even though he or she is wearing gloves, because it might contaminate the evidence inside it. After placing the evidence inside the evidence bag, the evidence collector will write down the description, location, and condition of the evidence on that bag. Second evidence is the cigarette found beside the victim. The collector uses a tweezer to collect the evidence to prevent contaminating the DNA evidence that can be found on that cigarette butt. Third evidence is the receipt that was suspected to belong to the perpetrator. This receipt contains the history of purchase of the flammable liquids and also other information that can be linked to the suspect because the mode of payment used was card. Fourth evidence is a cigarette pack. This cigarette pack was collected for further examination if this cigarette pack was connected to the second evidence, which is the cigarette butt found beside the victim. Fifth evidence is a glass shard that was found on the left side of the victim's abdomen. the process of collecting this evidence just like the first evidence. The collector placed it on the paper and then wrapped it to avoid DNA degradation, moist build-up, etc. The sixth piece of evidence is a volatile liquid. If found in an open container, a small amount should be poured into a clean glass vial with an airtight seal to prevent loss. However, due to limited access to proper equipment, the collector uses a plastic container instead. The seventh piece of evidence is a bloodstain beside the victim. The collector swabs the bloodstains, which should be air-dried, before placing them in a paper envelope. The evidence collection is now accomplished. The collector ensures that all evidence was collected properly, to ensure the quality of the pieces of evidence that the collector collected carefully. After leaving the crime scene, the collector now gives the pieces of evidence collected to the evidence custodian to maintain proper chain of command. Once the operations of the SOCO team was finished in ultimately collecting the pieces of evidence in the crime scene, the submitted items from evidence number 1 to 7 were relinquished to the evidence custodian, wherein an inventory of each of the evidence was done, thereby ensuring that no piece of evidence was unaccounted for, in accordance with the evidence collector. Finally, facilitating the chain of custody of evidence handled throughout the crime scene investigation. After the evidence custodian completed the inventory of the submitted items, the investigator on case and the team leader of the SOCO team conducted a final walkthrough of the crime scene to ensure that all pieces of evidence had been properly collected and that no details were overlooked. Once the assessment was completed, the team leader and the investigator on case shook hands, signifying a formal turnover and release of the crime scene. Before heading off, the photographer once more took shot of all the inventories that were submitted to the evidence custodian. This is to ensure that all of the collected evidence were secured and complete before they are taken by the custodian.